I'm going to talk to you guys about multi-benefit flood protection projects in California's Central Valley and how to finance them, or opportunities for financing. So this is a simulated satellite image from of California during the time of the gold rush. Obviously, it's not real. So this is the Sacramento River, this is San Joaquin River, this is Tulare Lake. These waterways used to swell up with seasonal flooding. And during extreme flooding events, they would cover almost the entire Central Valley, creating an inland sea. On the right, you don't see that. You see channelized and straight rivers. This is because California's state and the federal government invested in one of the largest infrastructure projects of all time, building a series of dams, levees, canals, and sloughs to convey water to California's growing urban and agro sectors. As a result, 95% of the habitat surrounding these rivers were basically erased. It makes sense that there's lots of flood risk in the Central Valley, given that there's seasonal flooding. So our flood infrastructure is actually pretty poor. We're rated for 50 and 100-year floods. Sacramento is the second highest in the nation for flood risk. There's a handful of other big cities in the Central Valley and smaller communities that are also at high risk for floods. So this is what we're concerned about. We're concerned about levee breaches. That's what happened in New Orleans. And earthquakes, land subsidence, and burrowing animals all contribute to levee degradation. And this is a historical flood in Sacramento. They moved the capital after that. So Central Valley communities are disadvantaged in that they don't have as much access to open space. Only 7% of state parks in California are located in the Central Valley. So it creates an environmental justice issue where there's a disproportionate impact on Latino, low-income communities with access to recreation. So multi-benefit flood protection, flood protection projects reduce flood risk while restoring river functions. So with restoring river functions, you restore habitat, you can recharge groundwater and create new recreational areas. And you do this by setting levees back to reduce pressure on the levees and allowing the river room to breathe inside this levee space. So you can reconnect the river to its floodplain, allowing for habitat restoration in these riparian areas, recharge in the floodplains, and reduce flood risk in these areas outside the levees in ag and urban sectors, and allow for opportunities for recreational space both inside the floodplain and on top of these levees. Unfortunately, these projects have a really high price tag. Probably not as high as if you address these issues individually, but there's been a trend towards lower federal participation and funding in these projects. Water bottom funding is slated to run out in the next year, and this funding is generally intermittent. California has been addicted to bonds since the early 90s, and there's limitations on our borrowing capacity. Ordinarily, general obligation bonds are repaid from the state's general fund. These compete with education and healthcare. And so we need local funding to fill in these gaps. And using special districts to collect taxes or benefit assessments is a great way to do this. So this is the funding mechanism I've been working on. Uses upfront capital from the EPA's Clean Water State Revolving Fund to provide low-interest loans to communities in special districts for 30-year repayment. So these loans can be repaid over 30 years with special tax and assessments and sale of mitigation credits. So when we're restoring these riparian areas, we're restoring them to a certain standard, and with this you can sell these credits on the mitigation market to companies and agencies looking to mitigate for their impacts. So this provides a pretty significant source of revenue, but focusing on special taxes and assessments, we utilize special districts because of their transparency. These special districts usually are used for one public good, so you know exactly where this money is going to. Also, you can draw the boundaries of special districts to incorporate all the beneficiaries of these projects, including people, including not just those who benefit from flood risk reduction, but those who benefit from groundwater recharge and recreation areas. So when we're talking about taxes and assessments, we have to, first of all, they have to pass a vote, and we have to think about benefits received from these taxes. We have to think about ability for these communities to pay for these taxes, and we have to also think about perceived flood risk in these communities. Flood risk ebbs and flows with flood itself. So essentially, these taxes can be spread over a 30-year repayment period, which lowers the annual tax rate. In the past, these communities have elected to pay these special taxes rather than pay for disaster relief later on. So we can't keep playing tug of war with water resources between urban ag and ecosystems. We have to integrate our solutions. We have to pull from a diverse funding sources, and we have to integrate benefits from these projects into our funding strategies. I'm going to leave with this slide. So these are juvenile salmon raised in floodplain high-quality habitat. These are not, and you can see the stark contrast. Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
Do you have any examples like where this type of project has been done?
Yeah, there's about more than a dozen of these projects in the pipeline all around the Central Valley. I've been working on sort of remote sensing feasibility of these projects in the San Joaquin Valley. This is where they would really be of use in the San Joaquin Valley. You have a lot of these disadvantaged communities, but these projects have not been widely scaled up, and they need funding, and a lot of these communities have a hard time securing bond funding. So these local funds are absolutely essential for these types of projects. Any other questions?
So obviously there's a lot of demands on both public and private financing right now. Why this and not schools? Why this and not prisons? Why this and not X?
I don't think it's one or the other, I mean, schools, the Central Valley is, its population is growing extremely rapidly. It has a lot of investment, and that needs to be protected, and they need to be flood resilient, especially for these small communities. So this is a very urgent issue. Our flood modeling is not the greatest right now, and we can't really predict when a big flood is going to happen. And so I don't really think it's a one or the other thing. And I think also not relying on the state general funds allows more freedom for these projects to coexist with other public benefit projects. And there is lots of room for private investment in these projects as well. That's part of my paper, but yeah. So, I mean, I could talk about that.
Well, but if I were a private investor, why would this be attractive?
You know that your money is going to ecosystem restoration. That's a pretty high cause in the Central Valley. You can get returns on selling these mitigation credits. You can get returns on groundwater banking, and water surcharge from groundwater recharge. So there's a number of things that could be suitable for private investment. The problem is, I mean, there's a lot of deployable money right now, but there's not a lot of investable projects. So they really need to streamline sort of the process of getting those returns to investors and being able to indicate that there are returns.
I'm curious about the prevalence of people carrying flood insurance in the Central Valley, if that's common, and if there is room for involving insurance companies who might benefit from these projects.
Yeah, California is talking about developing, and I don't know that much about flood insurance in California. I should have done more research, but California is talking about implementing a state flood insurance plan as a way to raise money for these projects as well. But it's not common right now, flood insurance. I mean, I don't know many insurers that would that would insure such high risk areas, but I don't know much about it. Sam?
Can you talk a bit more about how the mitigation credit works?
Yeah, so anytime a developer or a government agency is doing some sort of work and they have any sort of environmental impact, they're required by state and federal regulation to mitigate for their actions. So, this project provides an opportunity to restore habitat, and those agencies and developers can buy credits to offset their actions. And there are a bunch of different types of mitigation credits. There's wetland mitigation, which restores just generally wetland areas. There's conservation mitigation, which restores 4 specific endangered species, which there are dozens of in California. And there's also stream mitigation, which just restores streams as a whole. So there's different